MyoHoRenGeKyo. Okay, part 2 of the actions of the Votary of the Lotus Sutra. So far, we've been getting a much more granular account of Nichiren's, not just his remonstration, but the actions taken at that time by Simon and his subordinates. And so we're getting a clearer picture of Nichiren's engagement with the leadership of the nation, both from the perspective of the, I guess you'd say, the military government, the Shogunate at the time, and its attendant, much like the West has ministers, chamberlains, advisors to kings and so forth. In the case of the Shogunate, they had leaders of or teachers of certain schools of Buddhism with great power in their association and influence in the ministers of government, the leaders, the rulers of kingdoms, provinces, if you will. Okay, so let's see how this evolves. We'll continue with Nichiren saying, when I reported what had happened with Ryokan, Simon attempted to defend him, but it was hopeless. So here he is, the leader of the country, defending his religion minister, because of course that relationship has to be honored, right or wrong. So Simon is sticking up for his religious advisor, but in the end, I mean, Nichiren is he's too knowledgeable for them, not for us, but for them certainly. He's studied Buddhism inside and out, and he knows the profound errors the Ryokan is propagating, and in Nichiren's view, that's why Japan is such a mess right now. So, Simon sticks up for him, hopeless, as Nichiren says. In the end, he was unable to utter a word. I will not record all of our conversation, as it was too detailed. So evidently they got into hashing out a lot of details in debate. In a way, you have to kind of respect Simon for entertaining even such a debate. I mean, because of the shogunate, the samurai government, you don't agree with me, we'll behead you. Out of here. So what Nichiren is indicating is they got into a pretty heated debate, and Nichiren prevailed on every point. The question remains, why didn't they just kill him right there? MyoHoRenGeKyo, right? So, that night of the 12th, I was placed under the custody of the lord of the province of Musashi, so he was arrested. And around midnight was taken out to Kamakura to be executed. Ta-da! You won't agree with me? You win all the arguments I have? Damn you. Can't keep you around. You're going to influence people, and I won't have ultimate unassailable power. Heck with you. We're going to kill you. Right? Shogunate Japan. As we set out on Wakamiya Avenue, I looked at the crowd of warriors surrounding me and said, don't make a fuss. I won't cause any trouble. I merely wish to say my last words to great Bodhisattva Hachiman. I got down from my horse and called out in a loud voice, quote, Great Bodhisattva Hachiman, are you truly a deity? When Wake no Kiyomaru was about to be beheaded, you appeared as a moon 10 feet wide. When the great teacher Dengyo lectured on the Lotus Sutra, you bestowed upon him a purple surplice as an offering. Now I, Nichiren, am the foremost votary of the Lotus Sutra in all of Japan, and am entirely without guilt. I have expounded the doctrine to save all the people of Japan from falling into the great citadel of the hell of incessant suffering for slandering the Lotus Sutra. Moreover, if the forces of the great Mongol Empire attack this country, can even the Sun Goddess and great Bodhisattva Hachiman remain safe and unharmed? When Shakyamuni Buddha expounded the Lotus Sutra, many treasures Buddha and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions gathered, shining like so many suns and moons, stars and mirrors, in the presence of the countless heavenly deities, as well as the benevolent deities and sages of India, China, and Japan. Shakyamuni Buddha urged each one to submit a written pledge to protect the votary of the Lotus Sutra at all times. Each and every one of you deities made this pledge. I should not have to remind you. Why do you not appear at once to fulfill your solemn oath? Finally, I called out, if I am executed tonight and go to the Pure Land of Eagle Peak, I will dare to report to Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, that the Sun Goddess and great Bodhisattva Hachiman are the deities who have broken their oath to him. If you feel this will go hard with you, you had better do something about it right away. Then I remounted my horse. So, obviously Nichiren didn't mean to make this plea for himself. This was a way for him to open the eyes of all of those samurai and people that were surrounding him on his way to be beheaded, and make them think. So even in his last moments, he's still the teacher, right? Out on Yui Beach, as the party passed the shrine there, I spoke again. Remarkable that they let him, right? Stop a minute, gentlemen. I have a message for someone living near me, I said. I sent a boy called Kumaoto Nakutsukasa, Saburo Simon Nojo, Shijo Kingo. Much easier to say Shijo Kingo, who rushed to meet me. He was a young man at that point, or boy. I told him, quote, tonight I will be beheaded. This is something I have wished for many years. In this Saha world, excuse me, something's going on with my eye. In this Saha world, I have been born as a pheasant? Oh, okay. I thought maybe peasant. A pheasant only to be caught by hawks, born a mouse only to be eaten by cats, and born human only to be killed attempting to defend my wife and children from enemies. Such things have befallen me more times than the dust particles of the land, but until now I have never given up my life for the sake of the Lotus Sutra. In this life I was born to become a humble monk, unable to adequately discharge my filial duty to my parents or fully repay the debt of gratitude I owe to my country. Now is the time when I will offer my head to the Lotus Sutra and share the great rewards therefrom with my deceased parents and with my disciples and lay supporters, just as I have promised you. End quote. Then the 4 men, Simon Ojo and his brothers, Shijo Kingo and his brothers, holding onto my horse reins, went with me to Tatsunakuchi at Koshigo, or Koshigoe. Finally, we came to the place I knew must be the site of my execution. Indeed, the soldiers stopped and began to mill around in excitement. This is quite an event. We're finally going to silence this monk who's been annoying us for years. Simon Nojo, Shijo Kingo, in tears, said, quote, "These are your last moments." I replied, "You don't understand. What greater joy could there be? Don't you remember what you have promised?" I had no sooner said this when a brilliant orb as bright as the moon burst forth from the direction of Enoshima, shooting across the sky from southeast to northwest. It was shortly before dawn, and still too dark to see anyone's face, but the radiant object clearly illuminated everyone like bright moonlight. The executioner fell on his face. his eyes blinded. The soldiers were filled with panic. Some ran off into the distance. Some jumped down from their horses and huddled on the ground, while others crouched in their saddles. I called out, "Here, why do you shrink from this vile prisoner? Come closer, come closer." But no one would approach me. "What if the dawn should come? You must hurry up and execute me. Once the day breaks, it will be too ugly a job." I urged them on, but they made no response. They waited a short while, and then I was told to proceed to Echi, in the same province of Sagami. I replied that since none of us knew the way, someone would have to guide us there. No one was willing to take the lead, but after we had waited some time, one soldier finally said, "That's the road you should take." Setting off, we followed the road and around noon reached Echi. We then proceeded to the residence of Homarokuro Simon. There I ordered sake for the soldiers. When the time came for them to leave, some bowed their heads, joined their palms, and said in a most respectful manner, "We did not realize what kind of a man you are. We hated you because we had been told that you slandered Amida Buddha, the one we worship." Nembutsu, right? "But now that we have seen with our own eyes what has happened to you, we understand how worthy a person you are, and will discard the Nembutsu that we have practiced for so long." Some of them even took their prayer beads out of their tinder bags and flung them away. Others pledged that they would never again chant the Nembutsu. After they left, Rokuro Simon's retainers took over the guard. Then Simon no Jo, Shijokingo, and his brothers took their leave. That evening, at the hour of the dogs, 7 and 9 p.m., a messenger from Kamakura arrived with an order from the regent. The soldiers were sure that it would be an official letter to behead me. But Umanojo, Homa's deputy, came running with the letter, knelt, and said, quote, "We were afraid that you would be executed tonight, but now the letter has brought wonderful news. The messenger said that since the Lord of Musashi had left for a spa in Atami this morning at the hour of the hare, 5 to 7 a.m., he set off at once and rode for 4 hours to get here because he feared that something might happen to you. The messenger has left immediately to take news to the Lord of Atami tonight." End quote. The accompanying letter read, "This person is not really guilty. He will shortly be pardoned. If you execute him, you will have cause to regret." Now it was the night of the 13th. There were scores of warriors stationed around my lodging and in the main garden. Because it was the middle of the 9th month, the moon was very round and full. I went out into the garden, and there, turning toward the moon, recited the verse portion of the Lifespan chapter. Then I spoke briefly about the faults of the various schools, citing passages from the Lotus Sutra. I said, quote, "You, the deity of the moon, are rare moon, the son of a deity who participated in the ceremony of the Lotus Sutra of the MyoHoRenGeKyo. When the Buddha expounded the Treasure Tower chapter, you received his order, and in the entrustment chapter, when the Buddha patted your head with his hand, in your vow you said, quote, 'We will respectfully carry out all these things, just as the world-honored one has commanded,' end quote. You are that very deity. Would you have an opportunity to fulfill the vow you made in the Buddha's presence if it were not for me? Now that you see me in this situation, you should rush forward joyfully to receive the sufferings of the Votary of the Lotus Sutra in his stead, thereby carrying out the Buddha's command and also fulfilling your vow. It is strange indeed that you have not yet done anything. If nothing is done to set this country to rights, I will never return to Kamakura. Even if you do not intend to do anything for me, How can you go on shining with such a complacent face? This sounds a lot like what I tell you guys all the time. Go to your mandala and demand your Buddhahood. This is essentially what Nichiren is doing here. The Great Collection Sutra, he continues, says, the sun and moon no longer shed their light. The Benevolent King's Sutra says, the sun and moon depart from their regular courses. The Sovereign King's Sutra says the 33 heavenly deities become furious. What about these passages, moon deity? What is your answer? Then, as though in reply, a large star, bright as the morning star, fell from the sky and hung in the branches of a plum tree in front of me. The soldiers, astounded, jumped down from the veranda, fell on their faces in the garden, or ran behind the house. Immediately the sky clouded over, and a fierce wind started up, raging so violently that the whole island of Enoshima seemed to roar. The sky shook, echoing with a sound like pounding drums. The day dawned, and on the 14th day, at the hour of the hare, a man called the lay priest Juro came and said to me, quote, last night there was a huge commotion in the regent's residence at the hour of the dog. They summoned a diviner who said, quote, the country is going to erupt in turmoil because you punished that monk. If you do not call him back to Kamakura immediately, there's no telling what will happen to this land. At that, some said, let's pardon him. Others said, since he predicted that war would break out within 100 days, why don't we wait and see what happens? I was kept at Echi for more than 20 days. During that period, 7 or 8 cases of arson and an endless succession of murders took place in Kamakura. Slanderers went around saying that Nichiren's disciples were setting the fires. The government officials thought this might be true and made up a list of over 260 of my followers who they believed should be expelled from Kamakura. Word spread that these persons were all to be exiled to remote islands and that those disciples already in prison would be beheaded. It turned out, however, that the fires were set by the observers of the precepts and the Nembutsu believers in an attempt to implicate my disciples. Politics. Wonderful, huh? There were other things that happened, but they are too numerous to mention here. There's a lot of theories on what happened on these nights, many revolving around the quite strong possibility that there was an eclipse around that time in history that may have coincided with this. Other accounts are that this could have just been a meteor shower. Something heavenly happened, and there's scientific indications, there's no actual proof, but there's a lot of discussion around what that event might have been. Because although this discussion, and this is the most involved one I've read to date from Nichiren, there's some flowery language here, as there always is, but there is an event. It did cause quite a bit of a commotion. The whole idea of beheading Nichiren. Nichiren had a lot of followers by this time, so they could have been creating some unrest. I kind of doubt that they set fires, but, you know, protests are protests, right? But it's kind of interesting that it was shown that these were Nembutsu and who felt like, you know, again, like the leader, you know, Simon, tired of hearing your espousal of how wrong we all are, right? So there's a, what's the word we use, a backlash to this, right? And yet Nichiren has not yet been beheaded, and it goes on another 20 days, but they can't seem to get it done. It's just too, and there's a lot of turncoats, you know, these samurai who are saying, look, we've heard from Shijokingo or this boy, but we've learned from our own leaders, samurai leaders who follow you, and we've been hearing it, so we have doubts, and these doubts, when something happens, it doesn't take a whole lot, especially with people who are accustomed to these kind of magical thinking. You know, it doesn't take an astounding event to make them reconsider what they're about to do, right? Because it's different to slander somebody and talk, a bunch of crap about them, and then assemble a bunch of you as a gang to go out and cut their head off. I mean, I know these are samurai, but still, this is no small thing, right? So let's go on. Let's see, where were you? Right, yeah. I left Echi on the 10th day of the 10th month, 1271, and arrived in the province of Sado on the 28th day of the same month. On the first day of the 11th month, I was taken to a small hut that stood in a field called Tsukahara, behind Homa Rokuro Saimon's residence in Sado. Oh, so instead of beheading him, I guess let's stick him in Sado, just to keep him quiet so he's not talking to everybody. And let's just see, maybe we should reconsider what we're doing here. One room with 4 posts. It stood on some land where corpses were abandoned. A place like Rendaino in Kyoto. Not a single statue of the Buddha was enshrined there. The boards of the roof did not meet, so leaky roof. And the walls were full of holes. So basically a shed, an outhouse almost. The snow fell and piled up, never melting away. So we didn't have central heat in that little hut. It's not even a hut. It's just a storage shed, right? And there's dead corpses rotting on the ground. I spent my days there sitting in a straw coat or lying on a fur skin. At night it hailed and snowed, and there were continual flashes of lightning. Even in the daytime, the sun hardly shone. It was a wretched place to live. I felt like Li Ling, who was imprisoned in a rocky cave in the land of the northern barbarians, or the Tripitaka master Fadao, who was branded on the face and exiled to an area south of the Yangtze by Emperor Huizong. Nevertheless, King Suzudan received severe training under the seer Asita to obtain the blessings of the Lotus Sutra. And even though Bodhisattva, never disparaging, was beaten by staves of arrogant monks and others, he achieved honor as votary of the one vehicle, MyoHoRenGeKyo. Therefore, nothing is more joyful to me than to have been born in the latter day of the law and to suffer persecutions because I propagate the 5 characters of MyoHoRenGeKyo. It's validation. For more than 2,200 years after the passing of the Buddha, no one, not even the great teacher Tendai Chiche, experienced the truth of the passage in the sutra that says it, the Lotus Sutra, MyoHoRenGeKyo, will face much hostility in the world and will be difficult to believe because it empowers each individual. And authoritarianship has just been the way of the growth of civilization, hasn't it? And power does not like to be called out. Anyway, he goes on. Only I have fulfilled the prophecy from this sutra. Again and again will be banished, he quotes from the sutra. The Buddha says, in reference to those who listen to one verse or one phrase of MyoHoRenGeKyo, that I will bestow on all of them a prophecy that they will attain supreme perfect enlightenment. Thus, there can be no doubt that I will reach supreme perfect enlightenment. It is the Lord of Sagami, above all, who has been a good friend to me. Heino Saimon is to me what Devadatta was to Shakyamuni. The Nembutsu monks are comparable to the venerable Kokalika, and the observers of the precepts to the monk Sunakshatra. The age of the Buddha is none other than today, and our present age is none other than that of the Buddha. This is what the Lotus Sutra describes as the true aspect of all phenomena and as consistency from beginning to end. That's a very important statement. It's important that you really understand that. You may want to run that down for yourself. But when he said that this is the true aspect of all phenomena, this same sentence is echoed in the descriptions of Gohonzon. And this mandala representation of Gohonzon, because Gohonzon is your Buddha wisdom, your door of Buddha enlightenment and mind life condition. That's what Gohonzon is, and that's why this statement appears in statements about the mandala, statements about Gohonzon, statements about MyoHoRenGeKyo, and about life in general. This is what the Lotus Sutra describes as the true aspect of all phenomena. What does it describe? What is the true aspect of all phenomena? Well, let's back up a sentence. The age of the Buddha is none other than today, right now, in my life, in your life, in everything's life, every sentient being's life and insentient. And our present age is none other than that of the Buddha. Now, if you're a literalist, you might say, well, how is it the age of the Buddha if he lived 2,200 years ago? But that's what Nichiren led to this statement. Now, right now. Why? Because the Buddha is your life condition, my life condition. The Buddha is extant all the time in everything. All you need to do is see it, realize it, open the door to your own Buddha mind and wisdom. It's inherent. It is the process of life. Our present age is none other than that of the Buddha. This is what the Lotus describes as the true aspect of all phenomena. That's what's going on. If you don't know it, you're missing it, because that is the fundament of life. And as consistency from beginning to end. From noumena, we manifest in a womb that births us into this samsaric life. We pass through this samsaric life. We die and decay and return both materially and mentally, spiritually, back into that noumena. It's cyclical. Watch my playlist, my videos on the 3,000 realms and the origin of life. I get really granular in those videos. If you want a deep dive, go watch those videos. If you want a deep dive for yourself, research the 3,000 realms. Research, it'll be hard to find stuff other than mine. You'll find some things. It's hard to get into the Tendai scholarship. Hard to find books on it. I mean, maybe I should put a reading list together at some point, but I don't want to be seen or perceived as someone who limits your opportunities for knowledge. So do some digging for yourself. But certainly studying the Nidana, the 12-length causal chain. Be careful of your sources. Be mindful of the sources who will no doubt influence their reading of the 12-length causal chain. It's an early teaching of Buddhism, but it's very helpful with the perspective we have from the Lotus Sutra, from MyoHoRenGeKyo. We can see the chain differently than a Hinayana or a Theravada, right? We have more evolved teachings that we follow, and so we get deeper insight. The Doctrine of Awakening by an Italian explorer, Julius, what's his last name? Evola. There's a book. He really gets into the nitty-gritty of it, and very impartially, because he's not a Buddhist. He may have been, by the time he got done with the book, he was quite impressed. But he does a really great job of tearing it apart. How many times have I said, I hate that. I dislike that. All right, I'll continue a little further. The fifth volume of the Great Concentration and Insight states, as practice progresses and understanding grows, the three obstacles and four devils emerge in confusing form, vying with one another to interfere. It also states, it will only be like a boar rubbing against the golden mountain, like the various rivers flowing into the sea, like logs making a fire burn more briskly, or like the wind swelling the body of kalakula insects. These passages mean that if one understands and practices the MyoHoRenGeKyo just as it teaches, in accordance with the people's capacity, and at the right time, then these 7 obstacles and devils will confront one. Among them, the devil king of the 6th heaven is the most powerful. He will possess one's sovereign, parents, wife, or children, lay supporters, or evil persons, and through them will attempt in a friendly manner to divert one from one's practice of the Lotus Sutra, or oppose them outright. The practice of Buddhism is always accompanied by persecutions and difficulties corresponding in severity to whichever sutra one may uphold. To practice the MyoHoRenGeKyo, the Lotus Sutra, will provoke particularly harsh persecutions. To practice as it teaches, and in accordance with the time and the people's capacity, will incite truly agonizing ordeals. Now, I suppose I could edit a lot of that stuff out, because if you're new to your practice, or you've been practicing many years and you're just reaching a stalemate in your practice and you're struggling with it, reading something like that might deter you from practice. But understand that what Nichiren is pointing out here is that, especially if you've practiced for a while, mentally, your attachments, your desires, your monkeys, they'll get louder because you're quieting them down. How many times have you tried to quiet a screaming, unruly child only to make them more unruly, right? They don't want to quiet down. So this is what he's talking about. He's saying, to the level that you're practicing and growing in your understanding of MyoHoRenGeKyo, you will occasionally face enormous doubts, or your friends will turn into opposition. Your wife may say, well, you go do that stupid thing, I think, blah, 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 and be negative. Those kind of things in our environment, because we're attached, we're in samsara, can be very painful. But what Nichiren is pointing out here is you should recognize what that really is. That's nothing about you, your ego, where you're getting hurt and manipulated. It's about what you're doing is so significant that it's raising up these oppositions. They'll go away. You have to remain steadfast. Again, this is a lesson on, say the word, resolve. That's right. You have to be resolute. The 8th volume of the Annotations on the Great Concentration and Insight states, so long as a person does not try to depart from the sufferings of birth and death and aspire to the Buddha vehicle, the devil will watch over him like a parent. So obstacles won't get in your way if your life is not affirming, if you don't care, if you just want to go day to day and screw it, I'll just live this way. Talk to anyone who's been an addict. They don't care that they know they're living in misery. They choose it. Because somehow, in their minds, they've decided it's easier that way. Well, there's your clue. This is why I say it takes courage to be happy. It takes courage to practice MyoHoRenGeKyo. Because you have to know that life is a more significant opportunity than simply to throw it away on drugs, inactivity, negative behavior, right? It takes courage to want to be happy. It really does. People will spite you for your happiness. It's such strange human behavior, isn't it? But those people will fall away rather quickly if you stay steadfast. So that's what this lesson is at this moment in this Gosho. This passage means that even though a person may cultivate roots of goodness, so long as he practices Nembutsu, or true word, or Zen, precepts, or any teaching other than the Lotus Sutra, he will have the Devil King for a parent. In other words, terribly influenced by bad friends, bad wife, bad kids, whatever. Bad being supportive of negative behavior, negative karma. The Devil King will possess and cause other persons to respect him and give him alms, and people will be deluded into believing that he is truly an enlightened monk. If he is honored by the sovereign, for instance, the people are sure to offer him alms. On the other hand, a monk who incurs the enmity of the ruler and others because of the Lotus Sutra is surely practicing the correct teaching. Devadatta was the foremost good friend to the thus come one Shakyamuni. The story of Devadatta. You can read about that in the Lotus and other sutras. In this age as well, it is not one's allies, but one's powerful enemies who assist one's progress. When we find examples before our very eyes, the Hojo clan in the Kamakura could not have firmly established itself as the ruler of Japan had it not been for the challenges posed by Yoshimori and the retired Emperor of Oki. In this sense, these men were the best allies the ruling clan could have had. For me, Nichiren, my best allies in attaining Buddhahood are Kagenobu, the monk Ryokan, Doryu, and Doemidabutsu, and Heino Saimon and the Lord of Sagami. I'm grateful when I think that without them, I could not have proved myself to be the votary of the Lotus Sutra. I mean, they're the loudest enemies against anything I say or do. They're just proving me correct. They're proving me right. And in their haste to try to silence me, they're sending that message throughout the land that I'm the one to pay attention to. It's negative publicity, but it's publicity nonetheless, right? In the yard around the hut, the snow piled deeper and deeper. No one came to see me. My only visitor was the piercing wind. Great concentration and insight in the Lotus Sutra lay open before my eyes, and Namu MyoHoRenGeKyo flowed from my lips. My evenings passed in discourse to the moon and the stars on the fallacies of the various schools and the profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra. Thus, 1 year gave way to the next. So basically, all he did every waking moment was chant. This is also a lesson. There have been many times in my own life when I was faced with to call them great obstacles is kind of vague, but we have moments. Sometimes they can be in your marriage, they can be in your friendships, they can be in your financial status, not necessarily status, your financial demise. It can be corporate, it can be career, it can be legal challenges that scare the pants off of you. Obviously, Nichiren's motivation was he was supposed to be beheaded. For more than a year, he sat in that horrible hut, barely protecting him against the wind, certainly not against the cold. And what he's saying is, I just kept reading this commentary and chanting, Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo. No visitors, alone. He's not saying, but the landowners must have thrown him some food, some rice from now to, I mean, he's alive, so he must be getting some kind of support, only to, withstand more oppressive torture, really. He continues, one finds people of mean spirit wherever one goes. The rumor reached me that the observers of the precepts and the Nembutsu monks on the island of Sado, including Yaimida Butsu, Shoyu Bo, Insho Bo, Jido Bo, and their followers, several hundred of them, had met to decide what to do about me. One said, quote, Nichiren, the notorious enemy of Amida Buddha and an evil teacher to all people, has been exiled to our province. As we all know, exiles to this island seldom manage to survive. Even if they do, they never return home. So no one is going to be punished for killing an exile. Nichiren lives all alone at a place called Chukahara. No matter how strong and powerful he is, if there's no one around, what can he do? Let's go together and shoot him with arrows. Another said, he was supposed to be beheaded, but his execution has been postponed for a while because the wife of the Lord Sagami is about to have a child. The postponement is merely temporary, though I hear he is eventually going to be executed. A third one said, let's ask Lord Rokuro Soimon to behead him. If he refuses, we can plan something ourselves. There were many proposals about what to do with me, but the third proposal mentioned above was decided on. Eventually, several hundred people gathered at the constable's office. Rokuro Soimon addressed them, saying, quote, an official letter from the regent directs that the monk shall not be executed. When did this happen? This is no ordinary contemptible criminal, and if anything happens to him, I, Shigetsura, will be guilty of great dereliction. So if you guys kill him, I'm going to be in deep yogurt. Instead of killing him, why don't you confront him in religious debate? Challenge him. Let's see what he has to say. Interesting. Following this suggestion, the Nembutsu and other monks, accompanied by apprentice monks carrying the 3 Pure Land Sutras, Great Concentration and Insight, the True Word Sutras, and other literature under their arms or hanging from their necks, gathered at Tatsukahara on the 16th day of the first month of 1272. This is interesting. This is quite a detailed historical document, isn't it? They came not only from the province of Sado, but also from the provinces of Echigo, Echu, Dewa, Mutsu, and Shinano. Several hundred monks and others gathered in the spacious yard of the hut and in the adjacent field. Presumably the dead bodies were taken out of the way. Rokuro Soimon, his brothers, and his entire clan came, as well as lay monk farmers. All in great numbers, the Nembutsu monks uttered streams of abuse, the True Word monks turned pale, and the Tendai priest called loudly to vanquish the opponent. The lay believers cried out in hatred, there he is, the notorious enemy of our Amida Buddha. The uproar and jeering resounded like thunder and seemed to shake the earth. I let them clamor for a while, and then I said, quote, silence. All of you. You are here for a religious debate. This is no time for abuse. At this, Rokuro Soimon and the others voiced their accord, and some of them grabbed the abusive Nembutsu followers by the neck and pushed them back. We're going to settle this thing. Shut the hell up, right? The monks proceeded to cite the doctrines of Great Concentration and Insight and the True Word and the Nembutsu teachings. I responded to each, establishing the exact meaning of what had been said, then coming back with questions. However, I needed to ask only one or two at most before they were completely silenced. They were far inferior even to the true words Zen, Nembutsu, and Tendai priests in Kamakura. So, you can imagine how the debate went. I overturned them as easily as a sharp sword cutting through a melon or a gale bending the grass. They not only were poorly versed in the Buddhist teachings, but contradicted themselves. They confused sutras with treatises or commentaries with treatises. I discredited the Nembutsu by telling how Shantao fell out of the willow tree and refuted the story about the great teacher Kobo's three-pronged diamond pounder and of how he transformed himself into thus come one Mahavarachana. You remember that from the previous Go shows. As I demonstrated each falsity and aberration, some of the monks swore. Some were struck dumb, while others turned pale. There were Nembutsu adherents who admitted the error in their school. Some threw away their robes and beads on the spot and pledged never to chant Nembutsu again. Wow. It's pretty interesting that it were the people professed to kill him that banded together to have this debate, to give him, Nichiren, the opportunity to show them why he posed such a threat, and at the same time learned that he was correct. How amazing that that scholarship could have that opportunity with people who were almost barbarian, right? Anyway, I will continue that. I think it'll take one more video to complete. But what a fascinating historical document of Nichiren's account of what occurred to him following his remonstrations against the Japanese government. Interesting that nobody's somehow taken. I mean, this is one man. How hard could it be to kill? But the Japanese sense of honor and duty is so strong in that culture at that time, certainly, that there needs to be a proper order to things, right? And that very thing is what continuously gets thwarted through, I don't know what means. Nichiren is talking about it here. He's saying, this can only be the support of my Buddhist practice. Where else could it be coming from? Right? We can talk about it in flowery terms of the gods of the sun and moon and the gale winds and all of this stuff, but what we're talking about is the aura we build around our life condition, right? You go into a place that's low life, you feel it, you're heavier, you feel less likely to smile, certainly. You feel tired, you feel worn out. But when you go to a place, go to a sporting event where everyone's like charged for the sporting event. You can't, even if you're not, I'm not into sports, but if I walk into an arena where there's a big game and there's, 50,000 people in the stands, I feel my adrenaline comes up, my body surges, I feel more alive. Even to the point of fear, right? But this is what Nichiren is talking about. This is what your practice can do. If your resolve is great and you understand that your will to be enlightened is so strong that it reverberates around you into your environment and changes without them understanding their perspective and their actions toward you. How much influence that is toward also moving them toward their awakening, even if they don't know that. But certainly it is a protection of your earthly form, body, self, right? All right, that's long enough. Thank you as always for participating, watching. Download the podcast so you can listen to it anytime. anything you can do to support this channel is vastly appreciated, not only by me, but certainly those of you who are watching our Sangha. We're almost to 700 members just or subscribers just on this YouTube channel alone. There are many more on the podcast and on other avenues. So all of you, tremendous appreciation. Share this video, like it, do all of that stuff, the regular YouTube garb. I don't like to get into it a whole lot because that's not the mission here, but the mission is to expand and spread the message of MyoHoRenGeKyo. So in that earthly message, there is the requisite for some kind of financial support. It doesn't have to be dollars, it can be incense, it can be anything that supports this channel. And for those of you who've already been so generous, again, thank you all. You know who you are. You're in the credits, most of you. All right, see you next time. Namo MyoHoRenGeKyo.